So my name is Lina, and I work at Ecker Center for Behavioral Health, and I am the mental health counselor there, bilingual as well, and I'm also the bilingual substance use counselor at Ecker Center. So I was asked to come here. I was here in June, and we were a full room. It's probably all about the weather, even though it is kind of nice out today. So thank you for inviting me again. I love doing this, just like in the sermon today, you find your gift, and I found mine a while ago, and I know it was it was God's gift to help others, and I just love going into the community. So what was requested was the roles of men in today's society. And that was a tough one for me because in my generation, I know what the roles of men, and especially being from a Latino family, the men ruled, period. So I'm just going to read a few notes, but I like this to be interactive as well. So if you have any questions or anything, just please feel free to ask. This is not all about just standing here and teaching. It's just being a gathering, a support group as well. So I'll be happy to help in any way. So has anybody ever heard about the Atlas complex of men? So you know the man holding the world, that's what that is all about. It's the idea that men carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, which can lead to a lot of mental health issues for them. Not to be too depressing, but the statistics are pretty sad and disturbing that for men's health, for example, males are 3 to 7 times more likely than females to take their own life. So this is a serious subject for men because as we visualize, they carry the load. So how can a man function in today's world? So we have one gentleman that I'm probably going to pick on quite a lot, so thank you for being here. As you were growing up as a young child, did you have a mom and dad?
Yes.
Did you ever hear your father say, men don't cry, boys don't cry?
No, not really. No.
Okay.
Because I've seen my dad cry.
Good. Very good. Okay, so then I'm out because then that was the wrong answer. I'm kidding. The majority of the people that I hear in practice or in families, friends, is that they do grow up where the father says, why are you crying? Boys don't cry. Men don't cry. We stay strong. Suck it up. And that's how it begins. I'm not blaming mom or dad. They did the best that they can. But that's how it starts forming in the stress, what men and the expectations that are for them. So the trick to become a man in today's world is going to be difficult, even for women. How many of you like change? Change. How many like it? It could be as simple as a change in the program at church, and you're just like, this is a change. I'm not used to this. Men are probably a little bit more resistant to that change. They're like, what do you mean change? Nothing's wrong with me. I'm good. But in today's world, change is very important. We need to all evolve because of the fact that it's so important for families, right? They need to learn how to respect diversity and accept change. I'm not saying all men, but that's one of the biggest, most important thing is to accept change. Men should also challenge and redefine the traditional gender roles. As that breadwinner, my father was a breadwinner. And we're talking in the 60s. Breadwinner, he came home and that was his job. Mom, she was a little against the grain, but she did work full time, but she took care of the home. She did the cooking, cleaning, laundry, and the children. Dad never changed one of our diapers. It's beautifully changed now where men are a lot more involved in raising their children, which is very nice. But We need to redefine that traditional gender role. And they're seen as the breadwinners and the protectors, right? You don't expect your wife to go out there yelling at the neighbor because, she was disrespected. You expect the husband to be that papa bear, to respect. But it should change. So a lot of men think that being a good provider meaning is just providing financially, right? I did my job. That's what my dad would do. I did my job. Here's the paycheck. That's it. But he was a wonderful father, don't get me wrong. The biggest, I think, challenge for men now is to truly express their emotions. How are you with that?
Myself?
Yes.
Pretty good.
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to invite you anymore.
You're not typical.
You're not typical. I am. This is kidding.
Vulnerable, I think.
I think as age too, they become a little bit more sensitive. But in the beginning, it's difficult to show your emotion because you were never told how to express your emotions. Or, like I said, I go back to men are not supposed to cry. They're not supposed to, because it's a sign of weakness. So that's like completely wrong. So, and I'm not offending anybody. This is good for grandparents as well, or parents, but I have a basic emotion sheet handout. I sometimes look, I didn't even think about this word, and this kind of starts to help. I like doing this at the dinner table. And you pass it around, say, pick 2 emotions and tell me what you pick and why. And bam, the conversation begins. And if dad gets involved, it's a beautiful thing because he's showing emotions. This other handout that I have is basic, but there are the emoji faces, and there's 2 pages of them. There's some that, let's see, jealous, worn out, confused. This is wonderful. This is just the start. That's all it is. So, honey, how was your day? Good? No, pick 2 faces. Let me know how it is. So let's talk about that protector role. It means more than protecting, beating up the guy next door if he insults your wife. It actually means protecting her self-esteem and self-worth as your children's. It can also mean protecting your way of life and guarding against any threats to the things that you and your family value. It's not necessarily the boxing gloves protector. Let's protect her self-esteem and lift her up, right? And again, this was requested, so I'm not picking on men, but I think it's really neat to start talking about it, and communicating. How about the leader? They're known as, they should be the leader, correct? Instead of,
Home or in the office?
yeah, we're talking more the home.
Okay.
Instead of waiting for your wife to take the initiative when you are having problems, why don't you try to take the lead? Get in the game and create what you want in your family instead of whining about the family situation. You've heard marriage is 50-50. It should be 100-100. He takes the 100 and you take the 100. It's equal 100%. That means that you give that 100%. And remember, you get what you give, right? And then my favorite one's the teacher. So ask yourself as a man, a family man, or just a man in a relationship, what are you teaching those around you, especially your children, with your behavior? So I taught for 10 years at the Community Crisis Center, but I worked with the male batterers that were arrested for domestic violence. And this was one of my favorite touches that I would ask. I would ask them, everything that you physically do, not the words, your physical and the deeds that you do, you are that teacher for that child. So when That little boy sees you shaving, he wants to do the same as daddy. When that little boy watches you mistreat your wife, disrespect the neighbors, not be a good community member, he's watching and he's absorbing it like a sponge. So you can say to your child, don't drink, it's bad for you, but go ahead and get me that beer, would you? I mean, it's sad, but just always remember you're that teacher. Provide a good example for your children, loved ones, and of course your community with both, I think, again, words and deeds. Set high standards. Treat your wife like a queen that she is, and your son will be like, that's what you're supposed to do. Your daughter will see, that's the way I should be treated, because my dad showed me that. And I think that's very powerful for men to understand. So, does anybody have any questions on this topic?
Well, I really do, because I was married. Well, first of all, as you know, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. So when you say the man was a leader, you know, in my family or culture, the men were the leader, but at the same time, like my father liked to cook, so he did all the cooking, and my mother did all the housework and the laundry. Well, actually, we did the housework and she did the laundry. And so my father was very much in the family, and so he was very similar to Tom, and he said, your father never said, you know, men don't cry. So my father didn't do any of that. And he always felt that it was good that you express yourself, similar to Tom. And so growing up in a very traditional Trinidadian, Bayesian family, I think my father defined the roles because he was a policeman.
Wonderful.
And so he wasn't that, oh, you must do this, you must do that, you know. So I think that for me, it was enlightening. But I will tell you, I was married. And it was pretty traditional. I was a very traditional Trinidadian wife. I deferred to my husband. Then helped me. I'm divorced. Sorry, I just wanted to make a joke, but anyway. I think I gave him too much credit. But anyway. I'm saying this to say this. So now I'm divorced, and yes, I'm doing the online thing and meeting men, and it's fascinating because it's a whole different schema.
Yes, it is.
So I guess I'm just kind of wondering, what's the new paradigm for men today?
You know, what I just reviewed is just touching the tip of the iceberg, right? We have so many different variables. You just said it, culture. With your culture, my culture as a Latina, the man had to be the leader. He was the provider, and he did not show emotions because that was weakness.
Well, my father was the provider.
And now, I see Latino families slightly changing that role. Finally trying to change. And they get a lot of, resistance still with the other generation, the mother-in-laws. So, like I said, there's so many different, we've got culture, we have the today's society. What were our values back then? I mean, again, I'm a 60s baby. They surely have changed. So it's difficult. And nowadays, I hope we can find a man that is willing to change, not when you ask him to change, not that you force him to change, because he wants to change. He wants to evolve. Does that make sense?
But don't you think you have to be flexible? Because even today, even men's roles today are governed by how women treat them. Do you think that has any validity?
How women treat them?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I heard women talk to men in such horrible ways.
Well, see,
I'm just like fascinated. I was like, whoa.
It's the same, it goes both ways. Whatever I'm speaking about, the female or the woman should have those same values. So if a woman is mistreating this gentleman with some pretty, rough,
words.
hush words, that gentleman should know, first of all, his value, and should know his ethics, and if he shouldn't be with somebody like that. That's the thing. And what gets murky is when you're afraid to be alone, or you just, really need that person because you're a little bit more clingy, and I'll put up with it. It may change. It may change once we live together. It may change when we get married. And the lies we say because of other reasons. But to
So now
truly,
we're there then.
yes.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, and not to go on and on, but I did teach, one of the things I taught my son was I always told him, listen, if a lady doesn't like you, or she's rude to you, or she's nasty to you, walk away. Don't waste your time.
Exactly.
A man does not engage.
No.
You never ever want to waste your time arguing with a woman who's disrespecting you.
Perfect.
Because now it's just,
Exactly.
man. I don't know. I that's what I taught my son.
The one thing I taught my son was, I said, one thing, I know you don't barely listen to anything I ever say, but take this with you, is just to be accountable. Be accountable. Be a man that will step up and say, that was my fault, I'm sorry. Versus it's you, or that person made me do it. Blame, blame, blame. So I'm hoping he did. He's married, he's happy, but. So that is the subject. Does anybody want to add anything about the way they grew up, or how their husbands are? Anything? So open.
Well, so my husband unfortunately passed away last December.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so we're kind of going through a crisis with my son, I think, because he's suffering
Yeah.
in a sense. Because I feel like my husband was his person to kind of help him, I guess like his guide.
Yeah.
And I'm a woman, so
Sure.
I just try to, but he's older now too, so it's kind of hard
Yeah.
because I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Right.
And he, it's like it's funny because you said your son doesn't listen to what you
Mm-hmm,
say. Sometimes I get scared. He doesn't listen to what I say. But then all of a sudden he'll turn around and say, oh, he goes, well, he'll say, well, I did it because you told me. And I said, oh, that's good.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
even though he says it, but a lot of times he does listen, but he's not telling me he's listening.
Correct.
And he does, doesn't have any, well, he's been having some issues with health, like his blood pressure.
Mhm.
So he's getting anxiety, so it's.
Could be stress and anxiety,
Yeah,
for
since
sure.
my husband passed away.
Absolutely.
He was laid off, and it triggered something really bad, so he was really not doing well.
Do you ever get any help with
Yeah,
grief,
now he's at the doctor.
or with grief, like counseling?
Yeah, and that's what I suggested as
Good.
well. I said, you need to go to, because I had gone to grief counseling
Mhm.
for 15 weeks, and I actually want to go back again, because for me, I'm not used to being by myself.
Mhm.
And then I tell Piola, I'm not used to, I have this house and I'm all alone, and I'm like, I feel so alone.
Very
And
difficult.
I'm struggling right now, because I come from a very large family also.
Right.
So we had 12 in our family, so we shared the same, my sisters and I, we shared a bed. I mean, we were like, I was always
You were
around
always with
people. But for
somebody.
me, now it's like, oh my God, I feel so alone.
Sure.
So I'm trying
It's
to
a long
adjust to
adjustment,
this.
but there's a program, it's called Hands of Hope in St. Charles. It's free, and they have support groups for grief.
Oh, really?
Grieving any husbands, children, babies, wonderful group. They're all therapists and counselors that provide that
Thank you.
for free of charge. Hands of
Is there
Hope.
anything- I don't live in this area, though. I'm in Chicago near Park Ridge.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would definitely look, a lot of hospitals offer grief
That was it.
counseling.
Yeah, I suggested to my son that he should, when my husband passed away, he didn't want to show it, and he didn't show his feelings.
Yeah, I
My
highly
husband-
recommend
my
him to
husband was
get.
like, and then he was like the traditional, we had a traditional relationship.
Mhm.
I mean, traditional family, I guess, in a sense, that I was also like the one, I did the housework, and he was more like the one who made the money, in a sense, but we both worked, but we relied on him.
Sure.
So then now my son, I think he's been real stressed out about everything, because he got laid off, and then it triggered all these, hard things for him,
Yeah.
difficulties, so he's been having.
I would
struggle.
recommend to get
But I
him.
told him to go to the grief counseling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna write down.
Anybody else with any questions? So really quick, I won't take too much of your time, but also a little touch base on addiction. Boy, we go from one end to the other, but it is health. So I'm just going to touch basic on what is an addiction. So when you hear the word, you go straight to drugs. in your mind drugs or alcohol. There's many other forms of addiction that you're like, ooh, caffeine, coffee, our bodies are addicted to that. Sugar, carbs, which is part of the sugar, gambling. A lot of people don't feel that the only time that they realize there's a problem, it's a family member. It's their wife that's going to leave them because they just, sold everything. So addiction can be sneaky, and the one way you know where it's like, oh, I might need help, is that you start using it or doing it more than you intended to. It's really hard to reduce it. So my sugar, I can have half a package of Oreos, I'm not lying, and it's the same chemicals in your brain, the dopamine, that go flying like as if you were using a drug. And it wants more and more, and now they say, I'm not going to get into marketing, which is just another subject, that marketers are aware of this. So they add certain chemicals in there, and your brain just can't stop having them. Lay's potato chips, you can only have one. Casinos actually get people that come over, like psychologists and experts, marketing, and say, you know what the brain likes? They like this flashing lights over here. They really like red, and your brain will like blue. Even the carpeting is, all tailored. And have you ever, I've gone, but I go for the buffet, honest. And if you ever walked in, it's not an easy way out, is there? You have to go all the way around, and it's like a maze. Why? Because they get you in there. And then, of course, they treat you like a VIP and get you free drinks and a free hotel in Vegas. So that's... Yes. So we have to be very careful, because we're like, wow, this is so nice. And then before you know it, you're at the slot machine forever. And then you have cravings. So you can crave that coffee. Your body's going to tell you, your head's going to be pounding, you need it. I'm studying right now on something, and they said that the hardest to break is smoking cigarettes. It's the hardest drug to stop. I was surprised at that. I expected something else. Then when it starts affecting your job, you come late because the Super Bowl is on Sunday late, you're betting, you're doing 100 squares, and you call in. And then you call in for the March Madness games, and before you know it, it's affecting your job. You're like, there's something going on. It's just like alcohol. Usually the 2 days that are very common to take off of work are Fridays and Mondays. Social problems. You start getting invited at friends because maybe you're drinking too much and you embarrass the family, or your friends don't want to be with you because you're always asking for money. And then you start decreasing or giving up important social activities. You don't want to go over to mom's house for dinner because the game is on. So all the things around us becomes unbalanced. That's my theory. When anything is unbalanced, it's time to sit down and check yourself. Why is this happening? Why am I working so hard when everything else is, so it's that question, just a basic question. So they do view addiction as a disease. And with my clients, I always tell them, it's not you anymore. And that's the hard part about society. They look at addiction like, can't you stop? Why don't you put that down? Come on. It's not the person anymore. The chemicals in their brain has been altered. And so when you're a diabetic, you need that insulin, correct? So why would you be mad at an addict? It's a disease. It can grow slowly and isn't always easy to see. Just like I said, the squares and then you like that high that you got that money and you want to chase it. And you could get in deep trouble. So that's like my basics of addiction. And you can put anything in what I had just shared with you in sugar. You use more than what you want.
So can I ask you, so there is, I was wondering, like, is it more, like, if you have a family that has like an they call it addictive personality, say for example,
Yes.
Does it run in families? 'Cause
Yes.
I've seen this. Like addictive, it's like addictive personality.
Sure.
Which is a certain way that you like to. you're
Shopping?
Somewhat like shopping or like gambling.
Yes,
or
it is
eating
hereditary.
sugar, or, it's like, it's also like kind of genetic.
Yes, it is hereditary.
That's what I was wondering. It's more like, it's more like, I think what I've seen is that it seems like when you see a family that has addictions, there's addictive personalities and they have different types of addictions.
And
like
yes.
someone might be shopping, the other one might be having too much coffee, the other one might be gambling.
But it's
there's
the-
different things.
It doesn't matter what it is, shopping, gambling, caffeine is setting off those same
Yeah, it's the same,
receptors
yeah.
in your brain.
So it all has to do with doping?
Dopamine. So you can, we call that the happy hormone. So you know how else you can get dopamine? By giving a really, truly hard hug. It releases that. Taking a walk, running, laughing, dopamine. I always tell my clients, go laugh. Let's go watch a comedy, but,
So
and
if
that's,
I want ice cream, I should run a mile?
Get a hug.
yeah, or walk, or get busy and laugh.
So laughing is a curative?
It releases that dopamine that we need.
Laughing is the- and that is the thing that I find the hardest thing to do, living alone these last 2
Absolutely.
years. Things are not as funny if you laugh by yourself.
I understand, but I think that's funny. I think it's great when I hear myself talking to my dog. This is not a lie. I read the Bible out loud because I have ADD and I can't retain, so I read it out loud. My puppy's there with me, and I'm like, did you hear me? And then I just start cracking up like, oh my goodness. I'm laughing, but it feels good, but it feels odd. Am I okay? Yes, I'm okay because I'm laughing.
So if you like,
Excuse me, what about like a workaholic? Is that, I mean, some
Yes.
people are- that's what my husband was.
That's an addiction because you are
He's working.
escaping. That's what there's two types of gamblers. There's the aggressive gambler that will do it at the tables. I don't gamble, so I don't know what those are called. And then the escapers are the middle-aged women, empty nesters, widows, because they sit in these machines, of course, again, they make them all really pretty because we like lights, don't we, ladies? And very comfortable seat, and they escape. They escape. Workaholics escape. There's something going on. They're escaping. Hi, Sandy.
What about the addiction just to technology?
Yes.
What about those games? I see
I
those
just
playing
read
these
an
games.
article that
Yeah.
teenagers spend an average
I
of
think they're
8.5 hours a day.
Absolutely. You know why? Marketing will give those colors and the right flashes and the right images that will attract that teenager. And yes, that is an addiction. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing it up. That's huge. And I do work with youth, and I have the most difficult time to ask them, 1 hour group, flip them down. I said, this cannot be such a bad emergency. No, they can't. They have a hard time.
No, I was saying, this is that what you were talking about marketing. I swear, I am addicted to Starbucks hot chocolate. I always think about it. I'm like, I have to go get my hot chocolate. I don't know what they put in there, but it tastes
Right?
so good. Oh my God. it's so
Chocolate.
good. Well, chocolate, I love chocolate.
Actually, chocolate's good for
But I do the
depression.
dark chocolate. I do the dark
Yeah, it's good
chocolate.
for you.
I sometimes I make my own. I do the dark chocolate.
Yes.
No sugar.
Correct.
Yeah, it just doesn't, I have
That's
to have
funny.
a little bit of a kick, so I put some peppermint in it.
Yeah,
And make it at home.
that sounds good.
I just feel like, Starbucks, their hot chocolate, there's something in there, I swear.
We can name so many
I
odd
know it's in the
things.
marketing. I'm wondering- 'cause somebody
It's all
was saying,
about
"Why
marketing."
put it in there, 'cause they have so many stores now.
I did a presentation at the high school and on gambling. I'm like, what high schooler want? And you couldn't believe how the numbers have risen. Why? The cell phone, the betting, the online betting. And when I was in one of my trainings, they're like, you can be at a Cubs game, online betting at another game. That's how easy it's making us. Now there's going to be not a new, but I think they're expanding the gambling in Aurora. And they're telling us we need more counselors. We need more gambling counselors.
When you're talking about these, these different things that I would say they need to crack down really on the computer use for the children.
I
And
agree.
hope there was a big lawsuit recently, a couple of days ago. I'm trying to think who it was. It was because there's a very high suicide rate now for youth and.
Oh, the cyberbullying?
Yeah, all this stuff. There's a real high suicide rate.
I'm grateful and I'm sad at the same time that I'm not raising my kids at this time.
Oh, my God.
They were just coming up with the cell phone when mine were already, in high school.
Everything's coming at them, all this information.
Yeah.
is not good.
And that's where the anxiety rate and depression rate is so high for our youth.
But don't you think it's not just, I think it's social or destructive lifestyles?
Well, I think COVID ruined our social.
I really think that this, right now, all this remote working is not healthy for
No.
individuals to be, you should be around people.
COVID destroyed our, we are all created to be social beings. It's in the Bible too. Actually, our pastor touched on it last week about being social. That's why church communities are so important. Not just go to church and leave. It's just like this community helps others, and the youth don't do this, and we need to teach them.
So
Good conversations.
What's your solution to people that have addiction?
You got the answer.
Just laugh?
Who's got what? A
Okay,
solution of
so,
what?
What's my
Well, how do you
addiction?
address the addiction and resolve
Is
it?
it just a laughter, find something?
No, actually, that's why I was asking if there's any support groups here. It's called Smart Recovery. There's a website, and they also have, on the phone, like what's that called? Yeah, and it's the opposite of AA, but it's all about cognitive. It's about our behaviors, and that's how you work at anything that you want to, need help with the caffeine. You want to quit? Well, it's all cognitive. First thing is, when we have our coffee, it's a routine, right? Or you want to quit smoking. My aunt always had the cigarette in her coffee. And the first thing is like, oh gosh. And then people freak out, and they can't. Freak out is not very professional, I'm sorry, and then they can't handle the change. So it's about cognitive. It's our behaviors. We got to learn how to change that, and then our thoughts.
Well, I was addicted to a donut and a coffee. Then I realized I couldn't lose any weight.
Rough crowd.
The worst addiction is smoking and gambling.
Yes,
Smoking out in the casinos, their businesses went down.
absolutely.
The smokers.
Yeah, but they fixed that with apps now, which is sad, but yeah.
Is there any program that, that can teach healthy balance? Like, so.
Yeah, the Smart Recovery.
That does that, because I'm thinking that that's really good, if you could try to stay balanced.
Yes.
It's gonna help. But
Yeah,
if you
we
start,
just,
to me, anything too extreme sometimes is not good for you.
We just worked last week in my group, Life Pie. It's a circle, and you put it in a pie, and you put everything that you value: church, community, exercise, health, your job, whatever you want. And then you have to rate it, and then you kind of connect the dots. Mine came out like really thin because I have some things to work on, but that's when you notice you're unbalanced. You're like, okay, I'm going to sit down and look at this.
Oh, this is a good way to look at it. Also,
So
Yeah.
do you counsel people, let's say, who are very heavy and want to lose weight? Do you counsel people?
Not necessarily a group, but I do have one client that I work with on that. And it's all about the thoughts and behaviors, because without a thought, we wouldn't have an emotion, right?
So we start with the thought.
Correct. So your first thought is, I'm feeling really sad, and I'm going to have that. I'm going to have 3 pieces of pie.
That will make me feel better.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you have that sugar rush, and you go back to feeling down. So it's all about, your patterns of thoughts, behaviors, emotions. Makes it sound so easy, but it is, good to have somebody with you, a community,
So you stress support groups.
I
That's
do.
important.
People don't feel alone in whatever that they're working on. And I see a great success in groups because sometimes we carry this and we don't share it with anybody, or we may be embarrassed, or like, oh gosh, I want to quit sweets, but who am I going to talk to? I don't belong in Overeaters Anonymous, but some kind of group that you can sit with and somebody else is going to say your story. You're going to be like, wow, I'm not that only one. And then that's how it starts.
I have to agree with you because we have a top chapter here, but we haven't done anything because nobody's interested. But, I do walk with this lady and we talk a lot about our emotions as it pertains to food.
I do have a client that was scheduled for bariatric, but I like this a lot now. They have like a team around her, a health team, and she had to do therapy services.
Yeah,
Because it's not about losing weight. Why are you eating? Why are you overeating? Psychologically. So when she started, she's like, I'm just here, because I want to have the surgery. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, this is going to be difficult. But we finally, with about the third session, bam, anxiety. I have anxiety. Well, what do you do when you have some people, they eat when they're anxious?
What about
right?
hypnosis?
Never tried that, or I've never heard of that. But she's been phenomenal. She got her surgery and she still wants to come to therapy. She loves it because she has somewhere to talk, somewhere to let it out.
Yeah, because a lot of those people gain their weight back,
Yes.
so they never dealt with them.
Yeah. So thank you for inviting me, and I'd love to come back anytime you need me, and we can sit and chat. Thank you, Piola, for the lovely food and all that.